In the lead, President Cyril Ramaphosa says his choice to visit the ANC in the Eastern Cape before its provincial conference is not sinister. Former President Thabo Mbeki visited the Free State a week ago in an attempt to revitalize, rebuild and unite the ANC in the province. Ramaphosa, who will seek re-election for a second term as ANC president at the party's national conference in December, is thought to be doing the same in the Eastern Cape. Now, joining us to make sense of this is political analyst Professor Sipho Seepe. A very good morning to you. Thank you so much for your time. President Cyril Ramaphosa in the Eastern Cape to meet the extended provincial executive committee in what the party had said was really to evaluate the outcome of the local government elections, which was quite poor. What do you believe to be the significance of these meetings as we perhaps now assess the strategies that branches and regions will be taking?
Well, there's a multi-pronged objective for the president. One is to deal with organizational matters, which we know that the party is driven by divisions, and this is almost in all provinces, except probably Gauteng, which seems to be less so. But when you talk about the Eastern Cape, it's a question of even divisions around the leadership of Ramaphosa and also leadership that is there in the ANC. So one part is really to deal with those, with the issue of the party's performance. But the other underlying issues are really to lay the groundwork for his own re-election. You must understand that lobbying is part of a political process. So he's not going to go there and only deal with the issue of saying, how did we perform and what were the issues, what are the concerns of the voters and all that. But the most important thing is whether he'll survive this year. So we'll see a lot of attention now being paid around the lobbying aspect of his presidency to make sure that he is elected. So this one must not come as a surprise. And it does not come as a surprise that this must also come just before the elective conference of the province, because it is at that level, at the provincial level, that the one will be able to gauge the level of support that one will have on the ground. Provincial leadership has an influence at the branch level. So it is very important for anybody who wants to be elected to be seen, to be among the branches, but also to hear what the concerns are. And with the elective conference coming in April, this gives him enough time to be able to iron up and to make some promises, as politicians want to do, to promise that if you elect me, this is what is in store for you. So what we should be seeing is more behind the scene horse trading. Ramaphosa at the level of performance within the country, at least that part is known. He has not done well in terms of the economy. He has not handled the COVID-19 quite well. Jobs have not come despite the promises. Unemployment has increased. So there's a general failure at the level of government. So the only opportunity that he has is to try to influence the branches, not to look at government performance.
And in his efforts at trying to influence the branches, of course, it was strategic of him to go to Tata, the stronghold of provincial chair Oscar Mabuyana, who's a supporter of his. In fact, Mabuyana has told the City Press that his support for Ramaphosa has resulted in him being targeted in smear campaigns by the grouping within the ANC, the RET. And he says that the so-called RET faction, it's showing itself in different manifestations to sort of create some form of chaos so that the unity that's being aimed at here, the unity that was seen in Nasrec 2017, does not materialize.
Well, that's a lot of nonsense because if you were to listen to the RET faction, it will also be saying the same thing about him. So what we have within the ANC right now is that you have a factional politics. And each faction is going to present itself as holier than thou. It's going to present itself as saving the interest of the organization. For instance, the RET grouping talks about the resolutions of the ANC in 2017. And it points out that none of those resolutions have been pursued. That even the whole notion of unity and renewal, it has been done in a factional way. It has been done in a way that sense that tends to support the incumbent. So these notions of that we are holier than others does not hold, especially when you have issues of factions. But ultimately, there should be an objective test to determine whether the leadership that the ANC has actually delivered. You have conference resolutions, so one must go through all that. You have the leadership that is in government. It has made promises, and those promises are clear and unambiguous. And it is not difficult to measure whether it has actually performed. So if the ANC is very serious about listening to the voters who have actually told them that whatever you've been doing in the last 4 years, we're not impressed. So this is what the ANC must be focusing on. But what we hear now is that it has gone back to where it had failed the people by focusing on internal problems and battles of the ANC.
Is it fair to characterize the contest as those who are between those who support the process of renewal and those who are opposed to it, as you take a look at the different narratives coming out of the factions?
Well, the most important thing is what are the objective issues that can be put on the table. An organization, it will be unified by policy, by resolutions, and by its pursuance of those policies and those resolutions, because those resolutions are the marching orders that the branches are giving to the leadership. And if people feel that they are not adhered to, that will create the divisions. And when you talk about also issue of renewal, what is expected is a consistency of behavior, consistency of commitment. But you cannot be saying you're dealing with corruption and turn a blind eye to people who are in your camp, who are accused of corruption, and then you do nothing. When you do that, you are also part of the problem of divisions within the organization. So when you look at all these things, there must be at least that litmus test, the things that we can look at and say, what does this conduct entails? For instance, you had the president who was talking about the misconduct within the ANC leadership at the celebration, January 8th. And yet there on stage, you had the Matabate who took a position to use the platform and abuse the platform to endorse Ramaphosa. Ramaphosa was silent despite talking about the need for discipline. So you need to walk the talk if you want to talk about the unity and the renewal. But for as long as you are factionalist yourself, then you cannot bring about that unity. And even when you deal with corruption, there must be consistency.
In dealing with corruption consistently and, those accused of corrupt elements, supporters are said to be hard at work in KwaZulu-Natal lobbying for former Health Minister Zweli Mkhize. What do you make of that?
Well, I think in the end, there is something called presumed innocent until found guilty. And I think Zweli Mkhize is beginning to count on that. And also what has emerged also with some of the people who have been accused of corruption, you've seen cases collapsing. And he's hoping that even his case is going to collapse. And he has already challenged his own dismissal, saying it has been unfair, and he's challenging both the SIU's report and all that. And he is in his right mind to do so. But had we not had a toxic environment, any allegations that have come from the state against somebody would have been taken at face value to be true. But where you have a toxic environment where state institutions are actually used to undermine political ambitions of certain people, it becomes very difficult for members on the ground. And Zweli Mkhize is actually doing that. The fact that he has enjoyed support in KZN, in one of the biggest branches, suggests that the people are now no longer trusting in government. And it is actually a problem when people no longer trust the government and its institutions. And because when that happens, then anything that is done by government institutions will be seen suspiciously as part of a political machinery or a manipulation to make sure that certain people's ambitions, political ambitions, are actually frustrated.
Former President Thabo Mbeki last week in the Free State spoke very strongly and warning members to rather focus on serving communities instead of opting to look at who gets elected to become a leader. I mean, is that possible in a climate such as this, especially considering the violence and the killings that we've seen in the Eastern Cape? Yesterday was behind closed doors, which sort of is an indication of the sort of tone that is being set ahead of these conferences.
I think the former president is correct in that sense that it is important for the party to start looking at its own challenges and also focus on the people, especially after the outcome of local government elections. So he is actually correct to say the ANC exists to serve the people. And when it claims to be a leader of society, it must behave so. But at the same time, there is also a certain degree of, you may say, misreading or naivety, or it could also be a certain degree of dishonesty. I think the ANC members are engaged in lobbying and trying to get into positions. And if you let the situation go up to the end, what it does, and you announce that the process is only starting now, you may give advantage to the incumbent. So the ANC needs to be honest about what its members are doing or what it wants to do. But at the same time, it has to balance the interests of the people and the interests of the party. But also, the state must be protected from whatever shenanigans are taking place within the ANC. We cannot have a situation where you have a report by Afrobarometer, which even goes to say even the judges themselves are not even trusted by our people. The state is not trusted. The president is not trusted. So we need to be able to insulate the performance of the state from the shenanigans that are taking place within the ANC, so that and those must have the elders who are going to try to resolve them without them being factionalist, without them also being put there as a ploy to advance the interest of one or other leader or ambitious leader within the ANC.
Very well. Thank you so much for that analysis.